Thank you, Young Americans for Liberty. How are we? How's everybody feeling? Wow. Oh, thank you. I have never felt like more of a middle-aged American for liberty than I do right now. Well, thank you. This is great, and it's great to be here, and it's great to speak in front of what was once the Students for Ron Paul, which is how I got into the libertarian movement. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out. Okay, so I'm Dave, as some of you know, because you summoned. All right, you summoned me a minute ago. So I first became a libertarian when I got introduced to Ron Paul in his 2008 presidential campaign. And from the looks of this crowd, a lot of you are like, I was 10 when that happened. So it's good. Yeah, all right. Well, I will say, so I'm 41. And I'm a dad, which I know what that sounds like to you. I remember being your age, and I remember how old that sounded. But I'm telling you, from my perspective, I feel just like I did. I feel I'm like the same as I was when I was 20, except for my knees. My knees feel really bad. My knees feel like something terrible could happen at any moment right now. They were like, do you want to have the microphone and walk back and forth? And I was like, my knees can't take that. I'm going to stand right here at this podium. All right, so listen. If I'm talking to a crowd that is somewhat younger than me, I will say this. I have two pieces of advice that I will give to you guys, okay? These are the only, in between the time when I was 20 and the time now when I'm 41, the only things I've learned is two things. Okay, number one, all that matters is family. Nothing. That's it. Nothing else that you focus on will be nearly as important as that. Not politics, not this convention, not whether you're for liberty or tyranny or anything. At the end of your life, what you're going to recognize is that all that matters is your family. And whether that's your parents, your kids, your wife, that's all that matters, okay? So what I'm trying to tell you is get married and have lots of kids. That's the best thing you can do. That's way more important than anything I have to say about fiscal policy, okay? And the second thing I would tell you as a piece of advice, what I've learned in my life is what also matters, and second only to family, what matters is telling the truth. And that is really, it's second to family, but it's a close second. Telling the truth is the most important value that you can have in your life. Apply that to everything that you do. Whether it's to your friends, to your girlfriend, to your wife, to your husband, to your kids, the truth is the most powerful force that we can grab hold of and kind of control. So if you are ever in a position where you can tell the truth, and that might upset people, and that might even cost you something, and you're a little bit nervous about whether you should or shouldn't do it, the only wisdom I have to impart onto you is that just in those moments, tell the truth unapologetically. If you know what's true, then make sure that you tell someone else what's true. Okay, so here we are. Young Americans for Liberty. We are in the middle of, you know how everybody always wants to tell you that every election is the most important election of your lifetime? I don't know. I will say this is the craziest election of my lifetime, for sure. And I've been alive for quite a while, and I've never seen anything like this. I mean, I remember thinking that Bill Clinton, Bob Dole was pretty important. And in hindsight, it wasn't. But, okay, so last week I spoke at the Bitcoin conference that they had there. Oh, you guys have heard? You guys have heard of Bitcoin? All right. So Donald Trump was speaking, and we got some Trump supporters here. Okay. So I had to get through Secret Service in order to speak because Donald Trump was speaking. I was speaking a couple hours before him. And let me tell you something. They confiscated my vape pen. Hold on. This is real. This is a new one that I had to buy because they took my Juul vape pen because the Secret Service said we can't let you in with that. And I pulled it up to them and I was like, no, there's nothing, it's just a vape pen. There's nothing I could do with this. And they go, we can't let you in with the vape pen. And so I had to get rid of it. But then as I was leaving, I was like, rifle on a rooftop, no problem. But the vape pen, that's what we're gonna have the answer. Okay, all right, that's fine. Now, if I could impart a third point of wisdom on you young people, the Secret Service, they don't have a great sense of humor. I'll tell you that much, okay? None of them thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious, but none of them thought it was even kind of funny to make that joke. But okay, anyway, it wasn't the best move for me. Anyway, the spirit of what I'm saying, it's incredible to me that the remnant of the Ron Paul revolution is still alive, and that it's still alive with young people. And I don't, a lot of people now, because of the weird position that I'm in, they look to me and go, well, what are we supposed to do? And I don't have the answer to that. I don't know what we're supposed to do other than the things that I just told you. That you should care about family above all else. You should always tell the truth. And if you ever get the opportunity, make a joke that makes the Secret Service uncomfortable. Okay? That is the entirety of the wisdom that I bring for you good people here today. Now, I know in this particular presidential election, and I know we heard there were some Trump supporters here, and I understand that. I understand why people would support Trump. I know a lot of libertarians are supporting Trump. Some libertarians are supporting Bobby Kennedy. I know that I don't think any of them are supporting Kamala Harris. That'd be crazy. Yes. Well, look, I don't know. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you who to vote for. I do think that the best argument for why you should vote for Donald Trump, in my opinion, is that he promised to free Ross Ulbricht. I think he promised that, he reiterated that the other day at the Bitcoin conference, and he said he would do that on day one, and if that's a good enough reason for you to vote for Donald Trump, I understand it, and I hope all of you will join with me if you are supporting Trump because he's going to free Ross. He said he's going to do it on day one, so day two, we lose our freaking minds if he hasn't done that already, all right? So. But I don't know. I don't know whether you should support Donald Trump or not. If you guys want to, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you who you should or shouldn't vote for. I will say this, because this I know for sure. If you're going to support someone, then that's fine. What you should never do is say, I will blindly support someone. That's what you should never do. If libertarians want to support Donald Trump, I think that's fine. If they want to support anyone else, except for Kamala, that's fine too. But what we at least should all make sure that we do is that we never shut up about the issues that we care about, okay? And there are lots of reasons to support Trump, Vance. All you have to do is really watch MSNBC for 5 minutes, and then you're like, I'm gonna support whoever you guys hate. That's what I'm gonna do. And believe me, I've been there myself. I've been very ready to support Donald Trump just because CNN is pissing me off so much. And I think that's what a lot of the appeal of Donald Trump is. And that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't support him. But I do think that while we're all here together in a group of liberty-minded young people, I should at least say that there's a few things that we have to make sure that we get across. You know, there's a reason why we come from the Ron Paul revolution. And the reason is fairly simple. It's because Ron Paul was right about everything. And he was. There's not one thing that Ron Paul put his feet in the ground about and said, this is what I stand for, that all these years later you don't go, yep, he was right. And so if libertarians are going to support Donald Trump, okay, but I just want you guys to remember all of the things that we have to try to move his people in our direction on. Okay, there's a lot. Guns, that's a good one. You know, number one, they shouldn't be allowed on slightly sloped roofs 100 yards away from where you are. Or there should be a lot more of them on the other roofs. Well, let me say that. Okay, so there was I don't know if you guys saw this, there was a J.D. Vance video that went super viral a couple weeks ago where he was talking about tax breaks for parents. And he said, so his words, not mine, his words were, he said, we should tax the bad things and not tax the good things. And now, so if you buy into that worldview that the role of government is social engineering and that that's what taxes are for, are to tax the bad things and not the good things. Now, I don't agree with that, and I'd imagine most people in this room don't agree with that. However, let's just, for fun, concede the argument. Let's say, yeah, that's true. We should tax bad things, but not tax good things. That's what vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance believes. Okay, I'll accept that. We shouldn't tax the good things, only the bad things. Well, tell me this, is working bad? Then maybe we shouldn't have an income tax. I mean, unless you're going to tell me that it's a crime to work, I'd say then that's one of the bad things, or that's something we shouldn't tax. And let me ask you this, is owning a home bad? No. So then again, abolish the property taxes, okay? So by J.D. Vance's own perspective, he should support abolishing the income tax and property tax, all right? So we're making progress, okay? Now, I saw Donald Trump the other day, I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but Donald Trump said in one of his speeches that he supports federal immunity for police officers. By the way, he didn't say qualified immunity, he just said immunity, because he doesn't know the difference. So someone should probably grab him by the ear and explain that to him. But I'll just say that, listen, as a group of people who believe in liberty, we might, obviously, there are some blue cities in this country where they essentially have decriminalized shoplifting and carjacking and even more violent crimes than that, and we don't stand for that. However, if you're going to tell me that the agents of the state have immunity for whatever they do against the citizens of that state, then whatever you believe in, you could call it what you want, but it sure ain't liberty. You know what I mean? So if Donald Trump wants the liberty vote, then he's got to do a lot better on stuff like that. That's all I'm saying. And there's one issue that I believe is more important than all other issues if you want to get people who believe in liberty to vote for you. And that is the issue of war and peace. Now, I like what that guy said. For any guys, if it wasn't picked up by the microphones, I don't even know who that is. But for those who heard it, he makes a... Huh? No, that's crazy. Well, listen, let me say this. For the record, for those of you who don't know, I'm Jewish, and you didn't need to applaud for that. That was a weird reaction we had right here. Like a few people applauded, and then a few others were like, we don't like that much. And then there were a whole bunch of people in the middle who were just like, I don't think that should be one way or the other. But, well, I'll say this, okay? Donald Trump and his surrogates have been, for months now, campaigning. Basically, their angle is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are a bunch of Palestinians. That's how bad they are, because Donald Trump's going to be so much tougher on Palestine than Biden has been. Because he's been, if you haven't been watching the news, he's been going easy on them so far. Listen, you guys, if no one else, you guys who are the children, and I don't know, I hope some of you young people understand the legacy that you're inheriting, the children of the Ron Paul revolution, the reason why Ron Paul is such a great hero, and why he can still come here, and why people are still so happy to meet him, and so happy to be around him, and why he has such a devout following, is because he always told the truth, including about Israel, okay? And listen, any of the people who are fanatically pro-Israel, who tell you that you hate Jewish people if you're critical of Israel, or any of the people who are heavily critical of Israel, who tell you it's all the Jewish people who are behind Israel, I'm telling you guys right now, just like Ron Paul did back in the day, you don't have to pick between those two BS options. Those are not your only two choices, okay? You don't have to believe in Marxism or fascism. Those are not your choices. There's another choice, and it's called liberty. And that's what we're here for. You don't have to demonize Jewish people or Arab people or any other group of people to simply say that America has no obligation to fund wars thousands of miles away from our shores. It's almost like we need an America First movement, you know, who actually cares about our country. And let me just tell you, okay, if you are for America First, if that's what we're talking about, where we don't just go fight other wars that aren't in America's interest, and we try to have this radical idea that the representatives elected by Americans obligation is to the American people, well then okay, let's talk about that. The longest serving prime minister in Israeli history is Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu came and testified before Congress in 2002 as a regional expert. And he said with certainty that if we overthrew Saddam Hussein, democracy would sweep the region. And I don't know if you guys are history buffs, but that's exactly how it went. Just like that. By the way, he also advocated that we had regime change in Libya, Syria, and Iran. And he's still advocating that to this day. Now, I am not telling any of you that if you want to be a good advocate for liberty, that you can't oppose theocracy of any kind. Of course you can. And of course you can support Israel as a nation, and you can be a friend to Jewish people like me. But if you believe in liberty, then you must recognize that anyone advocating that America go fight another stupid, catastrophic war in the Middle East is your enemy. They are our enemies. Anyone who advocates that. The stupid wars in the Middle East have done nothing but degrade this country over the last 20 years, and there has been no bigger victim to the wars on terror than American liberty and the prospects for liberty at home. So I hope you remember that going forward. And I'll tell you, this is a simple way to tell who's who. If you have one of these kind of like Trumpist nationalist types who's talking to you guys, and they're like, hey, I know you guys believe in laissez-faire and property rights and limited government and all of this stuff, and I want to get you on my side. If they start talking to you about gutting the intelligence agencies, gutting the CIA and the FBI and the NSA, that's someone you listen to, okay? If they start talking to you about some serious move to audit or end the Federal Reserve, then that is your guy. If they start talking to you about fighting a war with Iran, you treat them like an enemy that they are. They are not on your side. Our people do not want to fight any more wars in the Middle East, period. No conversation about it. Anyone who's talking to you about another one of these wars, you dismiss them and you treat them as a Fed who's trying to convince you to storm the Capitol on January 6th. All right? That's what you treat them like Ray Epps. Listen, we've been through far too much of this at this point. And one of the things that's amazing that I hope all of you guys appreciate is that, look, I'm a little bit older than you guys. I remember well. I was about your age in 2002, which again, okay, whatever. I'm still cool. But the point is, there was a full year in 2002. Of course, as you guys know, in late 2001, September 11th happened, and in 2003, we invaded Iraq. But all of 2002, there was this massive propaganda campaign to convince everyone that, and every source, I mean, CNN, the New York Times, everything, everyone was telling anyone who would listen that we all know that Saddam Hussein has nuclear weapons. He was in on 9/11, and if we don't go overthrow him, there's going to be a nuke that goes off in Kansas. It was all lies. That's what they told. Now, I don't know if you guys remember a propaganda campaign like that. Okay, here's one. Remember when they said if you got that vaccine, you wouldn't get the thing that the vaccine didn't give you? Okay? You remember that? Okay. But here's the difference. Okay, in 2002, when I was a young American, we had nothing else. All we had was the mainstream media. There was no other, like no one else. I mean, maybe you subscribed to a magazine or something like that, but aside from that, you just had to listen to CNN. But that wasn't true with COVID. And that's really not true going forward. You see, the powers that be, they rely on propaganda. And their control over the propaganda information machine has been shattered. And now it's completely decentralized. There's a million different podcasts and shows on the internet that are telling people the truth. So what your job is to find those truth tellers, never compromise, always make sure you're aligned with them. You make sure you take care of your family, and you always tell the truth to them, and you always tell the truth to anyone else who will listen. And you have a better opportunity to do that than any generation before you. So thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. I appreciate you guys. God bless. Young Americans for Liberty. Thank you so much.